Wonderful, thank you, Abby. So good morning. So my name is Richard Lambden. I'm the Business Development Director for the Cambridge Spark, who, if you don't know us, I'll tell you a little bit more about us later on, but we are the kind of the leading data science and artificial intelligence training organisation in this country, and indeed we have clients abroad as well. Absolutely delighted to once again be partnering with HDR UK to present today. And really we're kind of looking at training in a trusted environment and what skills we need to develop to help people make use of data that's around. So firstly, Sushil, I don't know if you'd be kind enough to come up on camera and kind of join me. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. Just suffering from an ENT infection, so
are you?
I'm sorry to hear that. Voice.
I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you feel better soon. So, Sushil, I just wanted to start. There was obviously a fantastic article that got shared at the beginning of the month. Actually, there's been another, I think, around about £200 million investment that has been kind of earmarked to support, help the digitalisation, the NHS kind of data infrastructure kind of rollout. If you will, sorry, can you kind of share what do you think of the implications of this for the kind of the wider health sector? So, broaden it out, because we've got people on the call, not just specifically working for the NHS, but associated industries as well. What impact and what value do you think that's going to add, Sushil?
I think this is going to make a significant impact, and I would actually go a little bit further. It's not going to just make an impact in healthcare. It's going to make an impact across the entire economies of scale across the UK, because one of the things we need to remember is health is not just about health data. People's ability data, transport data, education data, judicial data, these are all sensitive data that needs to be combined to give a holistic view of a patient and their patient journey through the health ecosystem. So the funding from the government recently announced was about 260 million. That includes clinical trials work, modernization, is targeted toward building up what we're calling a trusted research environment network, a forest of TREs, as we like to call it. But the important part of that is standardization, because through the pandemic, we've seen a large number of data ecosystems popping up and providing robust, highly curated data, mainly for the COVID-19 research, but we need to do it for the other pandemics we have: cancer, obesity, all of these different pandemics that we are still facing, and the NHS is facing throughout its entire history, is something we need to address. And one of the ways of doing that is through trusted research environments, and we use trusted research environments as a form of innovative governance, where the data does not move from the jurisdiction of the data custodian. It remains in place. Researchers are able to apply for access in a trustworthy way and demonstrate trustworthiness by running their analysis securely and safely within that environment, so that those outputs can be shared for wider benefit.
Thank you.
This is going to make a huge impact. So some of the discussions today, I'm fascinated to hear more about what a TRE is, and also and discussions further up.
Thank you for positioning that. And I think the great thing, from reading the article, Sushil, was that it came through very much loud and clear in terms of putting all these threads together, that the patient, if you will, is at the heart of this. It's all about positive outcomes for the patients, isn't it? Improving service. So thank you very much for setting the scene. I'd like to invite Fatima and Utkarsh to join now, and they are going to give us an insight, indeed, in terms of what is a trusted research environment. So I'll come off camera, hand over to you, and then pick up in 15 to 20 minutes time once you've done your presentation. So thank you very much, both.
Thank you very much, Richard. If I start, and we'll introduce ourselves. So my name is Fatima Torabi. I'm a research officer and data scientist at Health Data Research UK Wales, based at Swansea University, and Utkarsh.
Yep, hi. I'm Utkarsh, and I'm a research fellow in data science at University of St Andrews, and I'm part of HDR UK Scotland.
If I share a screen, we'll start presentation on what is a trusted research environment. if everyone can see my screen.
Perfect, thank you.
Great. So basically, we are going to discuss what is a trusted research environment. And to give a short summary definition, a trusted research environment, often referred to as data safe havens, and as Sushil mentioned, we have a forest of these trusted research environments across the country, is a term used to refer to an array of protective measures implemented in a highly secured computing platforms to allow researchers safe access to health data to gain insight in various aspects of healthcare. So I'm going to provide some examples here from what was happening through and during the COVID. But as Sushil mentioned, it is not limited to only COVID cases. So going forward, hopefully these harmonization, large scale access to the health data would enable many more great science on the healthcare aspects and reaching wider. So the pandemic exemplars was from the theories that established the trustworthy access to the health data. And across the UK, HDR UK enabled these in the 6 main core studies theme that are data and connectivity, epidemiology and surveillance, clinical trial infrastructure, transmission and environment, longitudinal health and well-being, and immunity. I think you will have access to the slides, but Abby, Rosie, if you can put the link on the chat, you can read more about how HDR UK established each one of these across the 4 nations of the UK and within the different trusted research environments. So the main focus of having a trusted research environment is to really address the concerns of accessing patient data. So the trusted research environment addresses these questions of who has access to my data, am I identifiable in the data, and how is my data being used? These are all patient data. So the array includes multiple layers, but the main 5 aspects, which are called 5 safes, or 5 layers of safeguards included to ensure all concerns, specifically patient concerns, are addressed. And these are namely safe people, safe outputs, safe data, safe setting, and safe projects. I'm going to go into more details about each one of these aspects, and Utkarsh is going to provide an insightful note on a few of these. So what do we mean by patient data? What is included? The electronic health records, or what we mean by patient data, includes GP interaction, hospital admissions, A&E admissions, pathology, including blood tests, drug and medications prescribed or dispensed to patients, critical care admissions, birth and death records. So as you can see in initial view, these are highly sensitive data. If it is openly available, it will bring a lot of concerns. So how a trusted research environment addresses these concerns is through anonymization. So what does the anonymization process entails? At the initial stage, it means detaching the personal identifiable information from the main chunk of the data. And what we mean, name, address, surname, any personal identifier will be detached from the data. And as you can see through the process, what is left is the records that are attached to then an anonymized linkage field for every individual, and that is what is gathered in the array. And I will show you again, it is not done in one layer. So the data are split at source. The data owner splits the data, all the demographic details, name, surname, age, are detached from the health data, and the system linkage field is assigned to each patient. This is called the anonymization level. And then the demographic data is pseudo-anonymized by a third-party organization. And what is accessible in the trusted research environment is this final product, which is a pseudo-anonymized data set that does not have the patient identifiable stuff. So that means if patient A had this array of data, now the researcher cannot really link back to identify the individual, and that's the main aspect of anonymization and pseudo-anonymization of the data entails in a trusted research environment. So in terms of enabling research from these data, there are different data holders, or as referred by Sushil, there are a forest of TREs in the UK. So we said it can really enable great research. How? And if there is a new research project wanting to establish their project, how they can know what is in the data when it's not accessible to everyone openly. It is through data holders. For example, for Wales, SAIL Data Bank is the data holder. So a new research project or a new researcher, if you're interested to use data for Wales, you can directly contact the data holders for the Wales data through the SAIL Data Bank, or the other way to access the headings or what's called metadata, a short review of what is included in the data, is HDR UK Innovation Gateway. So that has been an effort going on for the past 2 years, and in the COVID, we really reached to a stage to see the value of having a nationwide repository of what is available in the UK to all of us. So what these are aiming to provide is to provide the documentation of what is in the data that is living behind these safeguarded, trusted research environment, and explore the sample size. For example, if a specific study focuses on stroke patients and the outcomes for those, they initially need to know how many stroke patients within, for example, the last year can they have access to. And that is what is facilitated by data holders or Innovation Gateway. And the population level examples from the COVID work, very short 2 examples, would be number of daily positive cases of COVID-19 and number of vaccinated individuals over time to help promote the vaccination across the community. So if I hand over to Utkarsh.
Thank you, Fatima. As Fatima mentioned, that what trusted research environments allow is a secure access for people like health data scientists or clinical researchers or anyone who wants to access these data. And this is there in the form of an encrypted format, which is generally called pseudonymized data. And what we do that and how do we use that is by ensuring the safety and security of all the trusted research environments by building a number of secure walls that Sushil also mentioned earlier. And what it means is, for example, there is no access to internet inside the trusted research environment. Most of these softwares are centrally managed by a file in and file out format. Fatima, last slide, please. The previous one. Yep, thank you. And we will touch a bit in the next slide on what the file in and file out activity means. And when we say file in file out, there's generally a review process. Again, this will be touched a bit later in one of the slides. and what is accessible inside the trusted research environment in terms of software such as R, SQL, Python, or any other software like Stata that researchers wants to use to analyze the data is available. One thing to note is that in case one of the software that is not there and that particularly is a need for the project, then the researchers can get in touch with the TRE or the Trusted Research Environment controllers to get that installed. The next slide, please. So within these trusted research environments, there are multiple layers of security and safeguards that we just touched upon in the previous slide, and to minimize the risk of data being misused. So touching on the first part, how do we do that? As previously mentioned, that access to these trusted research environment requires the user to be a licensed and acknowledged as a safe researcher. And how this is done? This is done by always complying to GDPR rules. GDPR as in General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR in short. And the researchers needs to ensure that once the data that they have, in addition to the trusted research and environment controllers, the users also need to make sure that the data that they have access to is pseudonymized. The next two things also that we touched upon is there is no access to internet inside the trusted research environments, and the researcher should not screen share with anybody who is not part of the project. And there are other measures such as we need to only release aggregated information outside the trusted research environment. Another measure can be any sensitive information, for example, any count which is less than 5. An example would be how many people have AIDS. If the number is less than 5, that means we don't display that information, because then where there's a chance of an identification. So these are some of these measures that we take into account when working within a trusted research environment. Next slide, please. As Fatima mentioned, there are 5 safe principles that we generally want to work around, and I'll touch on 2 of them, which is around safe people and safe projects. Safe people is when the researchers must be trained and accredited by following the GDPR rules and doing necessary training to work inside the trusted research environment. And one way HTR UK does that is by bringing or doing partnership with Cambridge Spark or other software providers or other agencies which can provide us with bringing these skills up to the mark. Second thing I want to touch upon is the safe project. So this is where the data is only used for valuable, ethical, and ethical research. So the deliverables and the benefit needs to be clear in the documentation that's being made to use the data. So that's where the project needs to bring together all these information. Last one, please. The last one is how do we get these, once we have analyzed the data, how do we get these data out of the trusted research environment? So all these results and output needs to go through a review process before they can be safely exported outside the trusted research environment. And this is carried by an independent review. And once this review is successful, these findings or these results can be exported outside the trusted research environment and can be used in the form of a publication or report or dissemination. And this diagram is basically just giving you a summary that the analysis is done inside the trusted research environment. There's a middle layer, which is the independent controller who reviews the outputs that needs to be released. And on the right, we can see that once this has been done, then we can use the data. The last one, please. So just in summary, that by adopting all these measures that we have just touched upon, we can ensure that the best practice in storage and analysis of data is taken into consideration before doing any analysis. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. You want to leave that slide up a moment, Fatima, because obviously you've got some links there, which again, I don't know if they could be posted in the chat facility for people, because there's a lot more you can kind of learn about it. Certainly, what an amazing infrastructure you've got there to kind of access all of these health data sets. You know, as I kind of discussed with Sushil, it's really, I guess, about, you know, uniting, improving and using the health data sets for the good of the patient. But absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much for sharing. Before we move on, are there any questions that anybody in the audience has got that they wanted to ask? Well, we've got our colleagues up on screen, so I'll just pause there and give people a chance to either put a question in the chat or perhaps come off mic and ask a question directly. So opportunity now for you to ask questions. There we go. Oh no, Rosie's put in the chat facility. Is there any questions that people wish to ask? Okay. Yes, Liz. Far away.
Hi. I'll put my camera on, special treat.
Good morning.
Just in terms of, I work in clinical trials, and obviously a lot of clinical trials is down to sort of standardization of procedures, and with TREs, it's obviously relatively early in there. I know SAIL's been around for quite a long time, and we work with SAIL in the Centre for Trials Research. But so in terms of sort of like standardization of these frameworks, obviously this is what the NHS Digital recommends, these 5 safes. But in terms of kind of establishing a status quo within trials and making sure it's like it is a standard across sort of all TREs, I'm just wondering what kind of how that's kind of going across each of the TREs, whether it's kind of networking between them to make sure that, you know, this is the standard of how we're going to be doing it, and sort of improving that going forwards. Because, you know, we've got GDPR that we're working under, and obviously in clinical trials we work under the clinical trials regulations, and also ICH GCP. But you know, this is the sort of thing where it's kind of setting a precedent across all trials, and just wondering what the means by achieving that is across, you know, your forest of TREs, really. Wondering if you could elaborate more on that, if that makes sense.
If I hand over to Sushil first, then I'm happy to provide details on the SAIL, and then hand over to Utkarsh for the Scottish TRE as well. Sushil?
I think it's a great question, and we need to do a lot more work, honestly. So we have been working with trust research environments from a technical point of view, and also from a data engineering and data harmonization point of view. So some of the work we've been doing is, you know, very simple, basic things, right? Making sure researchers have the appropriate training to access the TREs. That is still not harmonized, and we're working through all of the different routes, leveraging existing best practices. So things like what the DEA Digital Economy Act, accredited researcher program that's run through ONS and the UK Stats Authority, trying to leverage that and making that universally applied across all 4 nations. Things around data harmonization, so OMOP, I know there's a question around OMOP and FHIR. Again, we put in guidance to say, look, the baseline standard should be OMOP and FHIR. You can extend that with other extensions, but start with those as a basic minimum. In terms of clinical trials, again, reporting guidelines are being standardized across all of the different routes within TREs and also with data custodians. But again, this is a community-led effort, so it takes time for the community to get to that activation energy to be able to roll all of that out. So, but during the pandemic, so recovery trial is a great example of this, where it started off with a very simple clinical trial that essentially had massive scale across the UK and internationally recognized as one of good practice, or one of the best practiced clinical trials. So how can we learn from that? How can we make that as a standard approach for doing clinical trials? So all the lessons learned are being pulled together both at the governance processes and policies level within TREs, but also the technical enabling. If you wanted to run a clinical trial like recovery tomorrow for another condition, can you do so? And how do we pull that through? So NHS Digital Trials is at the forefront of some of this work, working with SAIL and other TRE partners as well. So there's a huge range of things we need to standardize, and we're taking every opportunity as possible to try and push the message to say, a lot of this work is not about inventing new technologies or inventing new things. It's just standardizing and bringing interoperability as a key requirement across all the different TREs.
Before you do that, did you touch upon the question from Dahlia around the common data models? Did you see?
Just to expand on that point on data standards and common data models, one of the things we've been working with the NHS Transformation Director, previously known as NHSX, to pull together what their policies are on the secure data environments that they're trying to set up, which is a form of a trust research environment. And one of the things that we've been discussing is start with the basic. So we have a national mandate for using FHIR as our interoperable exchange for electronic health records, but we're still lacking on what are the standards around imaging, what are the standards around genomics, all of these lab test reports, patient-reported outcome measures. So we need to bring standards to bear on all of these different kinds of modalities of health data, and also modalities beyond health data. And we're working at all of those levels. So OMOP and FHIR are the baseline that we are recommending. Not all trust research environments follow that, not all integrated care systems follow that, but we're moving the needle slowly but steadily as a community-wide effort. There will be pockets of advanced TREs that does all of this with OMOP, with single sign-on, with accredited researchers. Great, let's use that as a vehicle for driver for change, so other TREs can also learn from those advanced TREs. So SAIL is one of the pioneers in that forefront for pushing the boundaries on how we can enable better practice. Well, one of the things I just want to add is TREs typically tend to be viewed as technologies. They are a privacy enhancing technology, but ultimately technology is just enablers for innovative governance, and innovative governance is what enables innovative medicines and innovative science approaches and innovative research. So we need to make that focus very clear. The TREs are just enablers for good governance, and we shouldn't take our sight off that. And good governance requires engagement with public and patient throughout that entire process.
Thank you, Sushil. Really, really valuable insights. Fatima Utkarsh, did you want to add anything to that from the Welsh and Scottish viewpoint?
So I think great questions coming in, and to add and to just carry on from what Sushil mentioned, it's a community-led effort to take from what you learned during the COVID, from all the collaborations, recovery trial, REACT, all of those collaborations, to take the lessons learned and then see how we can smooth the way for the next ones to come in line. So we are trying on the multiple aspects, the training of the researchers, accessing the data, the actual environment, and harmonizing the data sets, as well as the data access process and output process. So it is all being identified by the researchers such as ourselves in different TREs, and the communication link that was established during the COVID across the HDR UK sites is really brought that learning, which we are hoping to take forward for both clinical trials and the population-based data and research. I think Utkarsh and I personally worked on multiple collaborative projects across the two TRE, and we have like our notes on how we would like to see these improve. So I'm handing over to Utkarsh for the notes, and then.
No, I think a great summary by Sushil, and as Fatima
rightly you're on mute, I think.
Am I still on mute?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah,
okay,
keep going, Josh.
Yep. So as Fatima was touching that, there are still differences, and COVID has actually bridged this gap very fast. And from what we have seen, that there are still, for example, I know a trusted research environment within Scotland that they have a number of data models, for example, OMOP as touched in the answer by Sushil, but still there is still not adequate training. And from past 5 years, there's been definitely an advancement in this to bring everything across the same platform and to harmonize and combine things and make things as similar as possible. So I think we are on the right track. Maybe within the next 5 to 10 years, there will be definitely some more progress, and we could see things being more aligned, especially from the data structuring point of view, and all the training and all the research notes and everything. They are aligning much faster than the data itself. So I think there should be much more progress in the next 5 years.
Thank you, but I'm conscious we need to kind of move the dial on, but there's two questions that come in that perhaps Sushil, Ukash or Fatima, you might be able to answer. One is from Andrew Hughes around are the rules around using the use of data in TREs for commercial gain, and one from Wendy Leanne Craig asking about I assume there's patient opt-out is applied at source. Also, any plans for a patient consent model? Don't know who wants to pick up those two questions, and then we'll kind of move it on. Any of you able to add some guidance for Andrew and Wendy? Sushil, you come back on camera. Are you able to help?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to unmute myself.
You've gone back on mute. You were on. You've gone back on mute, Sushil. You were off. There you go.
How about now? Okay, great. Just very quickly, I know we're short of time. Just to answer that question for Andrew, I was actually typing away in the chat. Obviously not fast enough. So in terms of commercial gain, this has been a consistent message from all of our public and patient engagements. So we had our citizen jury panels, we had one London engagements for about 40 participants from London, and also other public and patient advisory groups. One of the things that we fundamentally recognize is that all research that needs to happen within a TRE has to fundamentally pass the public benefit test. And that is essentially what every data access committee has to approve, any access within a TRE or a data access committee. As long as the commercial company that may be involved in the research can have a defensible position for the public benefit test, that research can be supported. What TREs can do additionally is to provide guarantees on what data was accessed for what purpose and make that transparently open for any member of the public to be able to look at it and evaluate, and also question and appeal that access. To answer the other question around patient opt-out, yes, that is applied at source. That has an impact on research. Typically what would happen is once the data is de-identified for purposes, especially in a TRE, that is almost impossible to actually pull out. Now, there will be scenarios where the data can remain re-identifiable for particular scenarios, especially when there's a clinical facing part within a TRE. In that scenario, the patient opt-out is absolute. It goes across the entire system and also has a potential impact on in-flight research. One of the problems we have, though, is the patient opt-out is sort of a very heavy-handed approach. You might not agree on a particular type of research, but the moment you disagree on a particular type of research, all research is impacted simultaneously, even good research. So one of the things we're working with the ICO and other organizations is let's have a very adult conversation about how patient opt-out is implemented to make sure, yes, we need to stop the bad actors, but also not negate all the good actors within the ecosystem as well. But again, the patient opt-out is absolute. It's done at source. That means all derived data within TREs is impacted simultaneously.
Thank you very much. So thank you once again to Sushil, Utkarsh and Fatima for that fascinating insight, and thank you to the audience for your questions. Okay, I'm going to move the conversation on now. So let me just share my screen. If somebody can just confirm when they can kind of see that okay, it will be much appreciated. Can everybody see the screen?
Yeah, we can. Thanks,
Fantastic.
Richard.
Thank you. So I think, you know, what I've kind of heard there is, as I said earlier, a really great mechanism and infrastructure to provide better outcomes using data for patients, which is obviously what, you know, for the end user. But I guess what the last 2 or 3 years has also shown is that, you know, healthcare professionals in the widest sense perhaps need to either be taught or upskilled in data science technologies and techniques so that they can apply that back in their organisation for the kind of the greater good. And Cambridge Spark and HDI UK have kind of come together to create a programme that we were very proud to be the trailblazers for, and it's this level 7 AI and data science for health apprenticeship, which I'm going to talk to you about in a little bit of detail today. I'll give you a bit of an overview about who we are as Cambridge Spark. It's utilising something called an apprenticeship, which you might not have heard of. So it's funded through your trust and through your organisation through something called apprenticeship levy. So for the individual, there's no cost. I'll talk about the learner experience, and if somebody wants to learn more about it, there's also some kind of key dates I'll share, and my colleagues on the call will also put some links in the chat for you so you can kind of access this information. So a little bit about Cambridge Spark. We've been around for 6 or 7 years. We started in 2016. We are the only specialists in the country in data science and AI. There are other organisations that kind of dabble in this space, but we have decided that we want to be the specialists within this data science and AI field. And all of our programs are really there to help facilitate learning right through from entry level through to kind of MSc level, which the level 7 program is. We actually have a range of programs, and I'm going to major on the one that obviously is the level 7, but just so you can see where it kind of fits in, we have a program we call Data Citizen for users of data. So by no means at the level of the colleagues that have just spoken from the trusted research environment type facility, but we find that making more sense of data rather than it just being processed in spreadsheets, actually being able to tell stories with it, being able to visualize it and create it in perhaps Power BI or Tableau, those sorts of things, it's pretty important in most jobs. Whatever you're doing now, we can't move away from the fact that we all have huge sources of data, whether they be structured, unstructured, words, numbers, etc. So we have a program using the data technician standard that we call Data Citizen, that we find across the healthcare is used by facilitators, administrators. We've got nurses on program at the moment, healthcare professionals, and we embed the Edward Jenner leadership management program within that as an added value. That then progresses into a data analyst. So I think one of the speakers spoke about NHS Digital, NHSX. We've just hired 8 brand new people for Alexandra Bush in that area who started in February as data analysts. And we teach them some of the languages that Utkarsh spoke about, so SQL and Python, using our proprietary system called Educate AI. And we back ourselves to kind of teach people from scratch how to utilize these techniques and start their journey at level 4. So that's kind of equivalent of, I guess, of a foundation degree, where they can then progress on to the level 7, which is for the full data scientists and machine learning experts. And then, as you can see, we have a whole series of kind of commercial short course training programs in conjunction with Microsoft as well. But I want to touch upon the level 7 today in a little bit more detail as I may. But before I do that, for some of you on the audience might not know what an apprenticeship is. I've been in apprenticeships now for 12 or 13 years. And probably when I started, they were very much targeted at school and college leavers as a way of kind of getting a trade. That's changed over the last 5 or 6 years since something called the apprenticeship levy came in, and they're very much a workforce development route. It just happens to be a pot of money, a mechanism to enable existing employees to upskill themselves, in this case in data science and AI, and obviously help their career move. And clearly the other thing that's happened in the pandemic is people need to reskill. So you can, as in my NHSX example, you can hire brand new people into an apprenticeship. You can upskill people who want to become more advanced in their chosen career, but you can also reskill people as well, utilising this thing. I haven't personally, it says that you can have anybody from age 16 to 100. I haven't personally ever had anybody of 100 on a programme. I have had somebody in their 70s, however, so it is open to anybody of any age. And as I said earlier, it's funded through something called the apprenticeship levy. So any reasonable side organisation effectively pays a kind of a tax, I suppose, for want of a better description. If your annualized payroll is over 3 million, and all of the trusts will pretty much be in that basis, 100% of the funding, 100% of the cost of the training is funded through the apprenticeship levy, which your trust is able to kind of draw down. Small organisations have to make a contribution, but the large organisations, it's all self-funded. And there are kind of some basic rules. I'm not going to touch on these too much, but essentially you need to be in a relevant role. It is very much a work-based learning program, so you will learn some stuff with us in theory. You then get to apply it in practice. So it is very much embedded within your day-to-day job, so you can demonstrate that return on investment. We take account of kind of your prior experience and your educational background, and there is a requirement to spend kind of 20% of your time with what's called as new learning or development time. So it is very much embedded within your job. It's not like going on a short course for 3 days, getting a certificate at the end of it, and then you have to kind of work out how to apply it. It is very much applied within your day-to-day job, and time is kind of set aside to do that. So let's look at the program in a little bit more detail, if I may. So it's we would expect people to have a kind of an intermediate level of Python to come on the program. We will do a little assessment up front using our Educate AI proprietary platform. It's kind of a mathematical exercise using Python, just to make sure you're at the kind of relevant level. We have had people go straight into this program who are new hires in organisations, but I think typically it tends to be people who are progressing in their careers, as I say, either reskilling or upskilling. If you haven't got Python already and you really want to kind of develop into this area, as I said earlier, the data analyst level 4 program would be your starting point, and then we would progress you through into this full data science program after that. It can be used by heads of data to develop their teams, to keep up to date with the latest technologies, to utilize complex data sets, and try and build models to predict what's going to kind of happen in the future. That's the exciting thing about the work that Sushil and Fatima and Utkarsh talked about, how it's having a real impact within the health sector, and as Sushil said, actually with other data sets as well. It informs all sorts of different things, but it really is some cutting edge work that the teams are doing. So as I said, just as a kind of a general overview, it's for anyone who's working with large and complex data sets, looking to drive automation and predictive insights using data science and machine learning models. It's really for somebody with that kind of software, Python, SQL, mathematical background, or perhaps they might have done a machine learning type of degree. And the way the apprenticeship funding works, it's very much based within England. So Scotland and Wales, where Fatima and Utkarsh are based, they have their own kind of different rules. The particular program runs over 15 months, so it's embedded within your day-to-day job over 15 months, and then an external organisation awards your grade. You can get a pass, merit or distinction. So there's what's called an endpoint assessment. We will teach, as I'm going to show on the next slide, data science and machine learning techniques. As I said earlier, kind of 20% of your time is very much kind of new learning and applying that learning and reflecting on what you've kind of learned. It's all funded through the government levy, so there's no individual cost for somebody involved in that, which is fantastic. And how we support it is in a number of ways. First and foremost, we have a faculty of about 90 to 100 experts who are working in industry and academia from Cambridge and Oxford University and UCL and all these kind of top places, who will deliver live interactive workshops. They're typically 3 to 4 hours, depends on the module, but every week or every 2 weeks. And we then assign you with what we call a data mentor, who is a technical expert who will help the individual apply the learning in the workplace. So the sort of tasks that Fatima and Utkarsh have spoken about, the data mentor understands the specific projects and activities that the learner works on, and helps apply the learning from our workshops into their day-to-day job. We also have a system called Educate AI, which has been built by our founder Raoul and Kevin, our CTO, which is specifically for the data science sector. So there's a whole series of exercises and assignments that are built into the system that provide real-time feedback on the code that you've written, and it will give suggestions to how to improve it if it notices that that an individual might be making the same error repeatedly. It kind of points towards further learning. And the beauty of that, I was talking to one of our level 7 learners who actually works in a different sector in a retail organisation only yesterday, and he was telling me that the beauty of it is when he's put time aside to kind of learn some new things, getting that immediate feedback when he's in that kind of headspace where he wants to learn and he wants to apply is fantastic. You know, he'd done a level 4 program with another organization, and historically in that environment, he was telling me that he had to send his kind of work off to a tutor, and then he would wait 1, 2, 3, sometimes a week before he kind of got feedback, and the kind of the moment had gone in terms of that connectivity. So the fact that you're going to get that instant real-time feedback is absolutely fantastic from being able to apply the learning and kind of work through. And the real beauty of what we do and why we've created this program in conjunction with Health Data Research UK is that it's specific to the sector. So there are health related assignments and projects built within the Educate system that you can kind of practice in a safe environment. So it's kind of interesting hearing about the safe environment of trusted research environments and what you do there to make sure you protect everything. Our system, you know, you just access it on a browser. It's secure within your own login. You practice in a safe environment, almost like a sandbox type environment. There's a whole peer-to-peer learning community within there. There's a knowledge bank of questions where students kind of pose questions and other students, our data mentors, answer. So there's a real collaborative kind of feel, and that's why it works so well in conjunction with HDR, who also provide us with guest speakers for some of the lectures and relevant data sets. So it's really kind of personalized to your particular area. And here's the curriculum. So as I said, it's a 15-month program. If you look on the right hand side there, you can see there are 16 core modules that everybody would learn, starting from the data science toolbox through to maths for data science, introduction to machine learning, production management for AI, supervised and unsupervised learning, time series analysis, ethics obviously is in there, tying back to the GDPR that was spoken about. Two kind of really interesting and fun things that our learners really give us great feedback on. One is a practical hackathon, which is a 2-day event that we host specifically for obviously people within each sector. We don't just work with the health sector, we work with a whole variety. So the hackathon is very much tailored in small groups for people to work interactively, collaboratively, share best practice and so on and so forth. The other thing is, if you look at number 16, it talks about academic reading clubs. So we have monthly guest speakers from different industries who are working in the data science field, and they share good and bad practice, what's worked for them, what lessons they've learned, and help our learners apply the learning. Last month, for example, we had 5, because it's International Women's Day, we had 5 female speakers who are working in the sector talking about what they'd done. The month before, we had a gentleman from Google, which I believe Google, you won't be surprised to hear, have a team specifically around emojis. And this gentleman did all the data research around emojis, and he's kind of shared his experience on that. But in addition to that, we have, because of our links through to the industry and through to academia, we have access to the latest papers that we will share with the students on a quarterly basis. They obviously get it in advance, they read it, and then the person who's written the paper comes together and shares their experience, what they take questions from the students, and it's just another way of enabling our learners to reinforce the learning and apply it in a kind of a real sense. You can then see after number 16, there are 3, because by this stage, our data mentors have really got to know the learners as individuals, and they've got to understand where they're looking to take their career and what areas they're looking to specialize in. So we offer 3 additional pathways, one around data ops, so databases and big data systems, cloud computing, etc. One around advanced data science, so more around Bayesian machine learning, natural language and processing, etc. And then the third option around machine learning ops, perhaps where you're more applying it in a software environment and using machine learning models to inform things for the future. You can also see that we give 2 optional Microsoft certifications through our partnership with Microsoft, who are delighted to support the NHS and the wider healthcare professionals. So there are 2 additional no extra charge vendor certifications in addition to the level 7 standard or apprenticeship qualification that the learner would get. They will also have the opportunity, as I say, to gain 2 programs as well. So, packaging that all together, it's a 15-month program. There's the interactive tutor-led sessions, all of which are recorded, by the way. It's very difficult to get. We have hundreds of learners on program, and to get everybody in the room at the same time. So all of the sessions are recorded and made available. Our platform Educate AI, not only do we give to the learners for the length of the program, and each program lasts at different lengths. So the level 3 data citizen is 13 months, the data analyst is 14, and this one is 15 months. We give it to you for an extra 6 months afterwards, because we want you to have that opportunity to really apply the learning in your workplace. I've mentioned the study groups, the data hackathons, the academic paper reviews, and the fact that you will get assigned to you a technical specialist to help you apply it. And then the final grade, as I said earlier, is externally moderated by an organisation called BCS. I'm sure some of you have heard of, British Computer Society, the IT membership body in the organisation in this country. They are the awarding body that will give you your final grade. I kind of touched on this, but we do think that there is a way of learning. We all learn in slightly different ways. So there is interactive workshops, which I said earlier. HDR supply us with expertise and guest speakers to really help it resonate within a health environment. There is our platform Educate AI, which enables you to experiment in a sandbox, safe environment, writing code, getting instant feedback. It's kind of gamified. You get visuals that show you what percentage you completed. You get reports that show you, what lines of code there might be errors in, or which ones you've kind of got right. There are assignments based on each. Whoops, go back one. Sorry. There are assignments that are based on each sector. There are some mandatory assignments, and then for those that really want to delve deeper into a subject matter, there are stretch and challenge opportunities as well. And most importantly, there's, we're all about delivering a return on investment for your organisation. So the work-based projects are related, using relevant data sets that are all built within the system that you can then take out and apply the same techniques and skills in your particular role. And then finally, it's really important. I'm a reflective learner. It's really important to kind of reflect on what you've done. So in addition to your data mentor, we provide you with a professional coach. We call them a learning success coach, who will support you on your journey, make sure that you're on track, have conversations around where your career is going, and provide information, advice and guidance. And there's a little bit on our platform. If anybody would like a demonstration of the system, we would be absolutely delighted to do that. You can see there's the link at the bottom there if you want to read more about it. But it's got kind of real world tools like Jupyter notebooks and Git and Python, and it's using all of the kind of the modern languages that I think Utkarsh referred to, that you do within the program. So it's absolutely fantastic system. It is ours, and I say you literally only have to access it through a browser, so there's no kind of downloading of software or anything of that nature. We talk about our 4 pillars of success. So we've got the immediate feedback using Educate AI. We've got the expert teachers, as I say, they've got the faculty of over 90 subject matter experts. So you're getting different people talking, as I say, on these either weekly or bi-weekly, depends which module. We've got the coach that's there to provide the support, and by the way, that includes interacting with the line manager of each learner, so that we're making sure that relevant opportunities are being provided by the line manager for you to apply the things that you're learning. Any qualification has a curriculum, and obviously we need to make sure that the knowledge, skills and behaviours that are being learned are being evidenced. There is in this particular qualification, there is a year-long, the length of the program, there is kind of a project that needs to be worked on, and a portfolio that's created. And as part of that endpoint assessment with BCS, there will be a professional discussion around the project and around the portfolio to kind of bring it to life, so that BCS can understand how you've applied it. And really importantly, there is the technical experts, the people who are professionals themselves within the data space, who will help you apply that learning and really become your friend to make sure that you get that return on investment. They're available throughout the week. There is also, as I said, there is a kind of a Q&A knowledge bank ticketing system built within Kate for help. And we really encourage the kind of peer-to-peer learning. It's one of the best ways at this level, at level 7. You know, you learn from the colleagues around you, from the experts around you. So we have a community manager that puts on events, that sends out newsletters, and makes sure that the communities, that you as a community are able to kind of engage with each other. In terms of when these programs, if I've whetted people's appetite, these programs, we offer them 4 times a year. So we have a February, May, September and November cohort. Our next cohort clearly is coming up in May 2022. So if there is an expression of interest, if people were interested in joining that cohort and joining the program, or you've got people within your businesses that you think it would be relevant for, then the deadline to kind of what we call it register, is it effectively express your interest, is the 29th of April, and then we've got a month to kind of go through the process of enrolling you onto the program. And inevitably, with a kind of a government focused scheme, there is a certain amount of paperwork that needs to be done using our system called App10. And if anybody wants to learn a little bit more about this, I'm actually running a webinar on the 6th of April, which I'm delighted to say I'm going to be joined by 2 existing learners on program who are going to talk about their experience and how they've actually applied it. So give some kind of practical examples of the work that they're doing and how they've taken the learning and been able to apply it in their day-to-day jobs. And again, Abby and Tom, my colleagues on the call, if you'd be kind enough to kind of post the links for both the registration, if you're interested, you know, if you're interested in learning more, but also if you want to join that webinar, perhaps we can kind of post those links as well. So that's me. I'm conscious that we're nearly at the end of the session now. So again, I just want to throw it out to the floor, see if there's any questions that you might have on anything that I've just shared there over the last kind of 15 minutes, then please do either raise your hand or come off mic and ask your question. I'll be delighted to take them. Okay. Hopefully that was of interest to the audience. Thank you so much for your time this morning. As was mentioned earlier, that we will be sharing the information with anybody that would like to hear more. Then the slides can be made available for you. The links have been put in the chat facility, both by Rosie from Health Data Research UK, so you can learn more about the great work that they're doing in a trusted research environment, and Abby has kindly posted the links in our for our programs and for that webinar that's coming up on the 6th of April. So Abby, if you'd be kind enough to stop recording now, we'll end the session there. Once again, huge thanks to Sushil